Hi everyone, happy October, which I think is the best month of the entire year. So I am definitely in my happy place right now, knowing that Halloween is right around the corner. I have my newest journal to share with you today, and it is the Diary of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And what I used for this one was a very old antique Webster's Dictionary, and I wanted to leave as much of it as it was. Unfortunately, the spine was completely ruined on this. So what I ended up doing to salvage it was I just took the front and back cover off, removed the spine, and then I made a new spine by sewing these 3 pieces of fabric together and then left it as an open spine here. So it's actually optional to remove these really pretty pieces of sheer fabric. Those are just tied on for additional support. Those can be removed, and then the binding would look like this. So it's 5 signatures with an open binding, and it's quite chunky. It is absolutely filled to the brim with all sorts of scientific, medical, experiment cards, photos, ephemera, prescriptions, anything that Dr. Jekyll would possibly need to keep notes of in his diary for his patients. The back side then looks like this. Again, I just have the folded over pieces that I sewed, and then a piece from the book. And I left all of the strings and everything from sewing on here because I thought that added to the rustic look for an old vintage diary. So this is the front page here, and inside it starts off with this old medical bottle and a periodic table of the elements, because every doctor and scientist will need that. And there's a Walgreens drugstore prescription and the Medical Companion Family Physician copy. So that is to start Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde's book off, or their journal, I should say. And then what I did throughout was I printed off and tea-dyed and inked or stained copies of quotes from the actual book, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And they obviously go in order and they tell the story. It's the most famous quotes. They tell the story of what happened with their experience. The other digital papers that I used are beautiful. I will leave a link for them in the description box if you're interested in purchasing them as well. What I liked about them was that they were really clear and they actually had a lot of writing on them. You could actually read what the book pages said. And so it was really informative. I have lots of these vintage receipts for prescriptions, which was really cool to read. And I thought that these little specimen tags were perfect. Every scientist would need those to be able to keep track and document. The other thing I incorporated in this book, besides the quotes from the story, I included any medical scientist or psychologist or really just anyone, any scientist, anyone involved in the medical field that have contributed something to society. So I printed off their photo and then their name, and again I just inked information about them so that we knew how they contributed to the field of science. So this one is Hans Asperger, and obviously he is the one who is known for naming Asperger's syndrome. And so those go throughout. Stuck spot. So this is an example of what it looks like in the center of the first signature with this pretty fabric here tied in the middle of the signature. And again, those can all be removed. There's another one who created the name for Tourette's syndrome. And inside here, you have pockets almost between every page that has more tucked in ephemera. Here's 2 bookmarks here to mark your place. And a little piece of ephemera of the human heart and different names. There's so many pieces of ephemera inside of this book. It is absolutely stuffed to the brim. This I thought was a really cool piece. This is the cure for cough and how to make an ointment for your chest. And that was really fascinating to read. Beautiful penmanship. I wish everyone still wrote beautiful cursive like that. The image of Dr. Hyde, or I'm sorry, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And it says, if he is Mr. Hyde, I shall be Mr. Seek. And then I sewed on, again, just scraps of the same fabric that I used to do the binding on the front. And there are charms attached. I try to include anything scientific and medical. So here is obviously maybe a little medical handbag, opener of tools. And I really loved these experiment science cards too. And again, I will put the link for the description of all of those below for you. This was another one that was really cool for colic. So homemade homeopathic recipes for cures during this time period. There's another quote and another photo for the book. And I just loved these little medicine bottles. And then, of course, I just inked those and stained those. And this document here is a records receipt for a psychiatric ward. I have a couple of those tucked into the pockets here. This here is a flip out. So you have room for journaling. I have these tea-dyed pieces of paper. So you do have your own room for journaling. Of course, on the back of all of these pieces, ephemera could be your own journaling spots as well. Everything can be written on. I have advertisements from this time period of the medications that they were given, what you could buy from your local pharmacy, which we obviously know not to use that anymore. A really large scientific experiment card. Another experiment card. Another vintage prescription receipt for medication. And a tag. And in this packet, I just have other little journaling cards. You can, of course, write on the back of all of those. Journaling space, so this is the middle of the second signature now. Again, that can be removed. I thought that the pretty sheer fabric added a nice feminine touch though, since the journal was pretty masculine. And this one here is a copy of the Lunacy Act of 1890, talking again about the psych wards in London. It was small font, but it was fascinating to be able to look at that and read what the protocol was during that time. Another charm here, and I rested all of them. I thought they came out pretty nice. More tea-dyed journaling paper here in the middle. And obviously this is great journaling paper too with the lines on it. And there's a couple of these for note-taking too, apothecary and druggist. Okay, little prescription pad sheet. Another charm here, medical tools that maybe Dr. Jekyll wanted to use on his patients. Lots of pockets, lots of tuck spots. This is all about the brain, so here's little brain pieces that I cut out. Copy of the skull. Large journaling card to be removed. This was fascinating, the different parts of your brain and what each one attributes to for your functioning. A couple charms that are on here. Lots more specimen removable tags. You can put those anywhere that you wish. And more medication bottles, prescription bottles. This is just a removable journaling card here, tucked inside of this pocket. And what else is in here? Just another large journaling card. Lots of hidden tuck spots, lots of room for stuffing your own your own life journey in here, inside of this diary. Of course, we had to have a picture of Madame Curie, another famous scientist. A couple other removable tags. More journaling paper. What's in this pocket here? This one was obviously all about how to do different bandages. Tuck those in here. I found this book to be absolutely fascinating while I was researching. Some things were absolutely mind-blowing. I cannot believe that we did to other human beings during this time period. This is a little specimen card down here, and it is just attached to this flip-out pocket. There's an eye reading exam here that perhaps a doctor would use. Another specimen card down here. And we have another fact here about a famous scientist here. Another charm. More removable tags. Medical tools. Medical tools. You have a couple of experiment cards here. Another removable tag. Another prescription for the pharmacy. There's a little bottle there. Chemistry cards, more tools. I really tried to think of everything science and medical related. What would Dr. Jekyll possibly need to be successful in his field of work? And that is how this book got to be so packed. Because I found that I not only needed to research what was needed for Dr. Jekyll, but what would Mr. Hyde need to write about in his journal as well. Removable tags in here. More of those medical bottles, which you can move anywhere you'd like. More charms here. Not really sure what this medical tool is. Another prescription. More tea-dyed paper for journaling. Getting into the surgical procedures, which that just, oh my goodness, could give you absolute nightmares. Center of another signature here. More about the medications for how to relieve asthma, how to help with breathing. It's fascinating. Chemistry equations. Advertisements again for prescriptions. Packets. And nearing the end of the book with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. There are just so many things that you could read and be fascinated about for this time period. Asthma cigarettes. Who would have thought? Seems like an oxymoron. And then this is the last page. So the last quote ends with, "Here then, as I lay down the pen and proceed to seal my confession, I bring the life of that unhappy Henry Jekyll to an end." And I thought obviously that was appropriate because here is the end of our journal. And I thought that image fit so perfectly. So you can see how it's an open spine here. It is very stable though. And so there's lots of room, even if you want to remove these. It is very stable. It's just absolutely packed. So I had a lot of fun with this. I learned a lot, and I think that that's one of the coolest things about making junk journals is the research that goes into them and learning something new. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful October.